Hello everyone, what is up? Welcome to the channel. My name's Jordan and this is the Physical Performance Coach. And today we're going to be discussing something I get asked all the time, especially by younger players that I work with, and that is, do I need supplements? So we're going to look at what are supplements, do I really need them, and if I do need them, what should I be looking for? So catch me in the main video where we'll go over those topics. Okay, so first up then, what are supplements? Well, if we actually have a look at the definition of the word, you can see that a supplement is something we add to something else to complete or enhance it. So straight away, you should hopefully be thinking that the major part of our diet should not be supplements, and actually what we eat and drink day in, day out should be our major focus. And I want us to think about supplements like the cherry on top of the cake. Get the cake right first, get it perfect, then you can think about adding those cherries, okay? So as soon as an athlete asks me, Jordan, should I be taking supplements? The first thing I'll always say to them is, let's get your diet right first, then we can think about having those conversations. But some typical examples of supplements are protein powders. You see loads of different brands, loads of different types. Things like creatine, players are starting to ask me now, Jordan, I've read about creatine online, is that something I should be thinking about? And certainly with football and endurance events, things like energy gels, you see them taking them at half-time breaks or any little break in play, okay? There's some really typical examples, but the first thing I will always say is, can we get the diet right before we even think about any of those, okay? So in the next section, I'm going to talk about how we can get the diet right, how we can get our bodies performing at optimal levels, then we can start talking about and thinking about supplements. Okay, so hopefully by now we've realised that we need to get our diet right first. Now, how do we do that? So if we're really active, if we're an athlete, or if we're somebody who's training a lot, playing a lot of games, loads of gym sessions per week, we need to make sure we're fueling our bodies right. And the way we do that is by getting a really good, high quality and high amount of carbohydrates in our diet per day. Now, when I work with athletes and when they ask me about the diet and when I talk to them about it, we're always recommending that the major part of every meal is based on carbohydrates. So what are we talking about? I will have actually made a whole video specifically on carbohydrates called Are Carbs Bad? Because there's a lot of misinformation and loads of people think carbohydrates are really bad for you, they make you really fat, but in fact they are essential, okay? So if you want to find out more about that, check out that video as well. But essentially we need to make sure we are fueling our bodies right before we even think about adding in the supplements. And I want us to think of it this way. If we're a really finely tuned sports car and I put really rubbish fuel in, fuel that's not good for the body, and I just top it up with the highest spec, high-end fuel, is it really going to give me a big boost in performance? It's not, because the majority of the fuel in that car is really rubbish. If I fill it up with really good, high-quality fuel that I know is going to be really beneficial to it, and then I top it up with even better fuel, then we're going to see some performance benefits. So that's how I want you to think about supplements. You have to get the diet right first. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so once you've got the diet right, once we're looking at that and we're really happy with it, then we'll look at supplements. So we're fueling our body right with the carbohydrates. Certainly we need to get high amounts of protein, certainly after training sessions, after games, after gym sessions, whatever it is, to kickstart that recovery process, to make sure that our muscles are growing and make sure they're recovering, make sure our bodies are ready to go again the next day or whenever you're next training. And we also need to make sure we're getting a good amount of healthy fats, not the rubbish stuff, not the pizzas, not the burgers, but healthy fats to keep everything running smoothly, okay? So once we've got that full package, we're really happy with our diet, then we can look at supplements, okay? So catch you in the next section where we're going to talk about what supplements are good, but remember, the diet has to be right first. Okay, so now we've got our diets right. We're getting high quality and high amounts of carbohydrates throughout the day to keep us fueled. High quality protein, certainly after games and training and strenuous exercise to kickstart that recovery process. And we're also getting high quality fats. So now we can start to talk about supplements. And I'll start with probably the most common of all, and that is protein shakes. So why are they so widely used? And one of the main reasons is they're really practical. It's sometimes really difficult as soon as you finish a match or a training session or exercise in the gym, for example, it's quite often difficult to sit down and have a main meal straight after. Typically it'll be around 30, 45, maybe even an hour after you've done it before you can sit down and eat. So that's where protein shakes become really handy, because they can come with you in your gym bag, they can be on the side of the pitch, you can get pre-made ones, or you can get them in a water bottle and just shake them up and boom, you've got high quality, high amount of protein. And all the research is showing now that the sooner you can have a high amount of protein after your exercise, the better it kickstarts the recovery process. So they are really, really handy. But what should we be looking for with protein shakes? Now, certainly for athletes or anyone who performs at a high level, you should always be looking for trusted sources of protein. And I would actually recommend this to anyone. Always look out for the Informed Sport badge. It will be on the back, or it will be on the packet, or whatever you're looking at of protein. There are so many protein companies out there now. Some of them do not batch test, and some of them do not test them properly. So if you're an athlete or a high level performer, you can actually fall foul of kind of the doping regulations and some of the rules and regulations in your sport. So make sure you're looking out for the Informed Sport logo, okay? And I would recommend always trying to stick to the bigger brands and the brands you've heard of, okay? Not the ones that you find on a shelf in a dodgy shop somewhere. That is certainly one of my biggest pieces of advice. If you're unsure, Google them, check them online to make sure that they are correct, or ask somebody at your club if they know what they're talking about, okay? Make sure you're using reputable, properly batch tested protein, okay? But what if you can't use protein? What if you don't like it? What if you can't stomach it? Or what if you can't afford it? Because some of the protein shakes are quite expensive. There are some cheaper alternatives, and one of them is milkshakes. You'll actually find that some of the top sporting institutions around the world, and certainly know some NFL teams do it, they give their athletes chocolate milk as soon as they finish their exercise. Okay, the reason for it, milkshakes or flavoured milk contain high amount of protein in the milk, good amount of carbohydrates in the milk and the flavourings as well, and the sugars, and then a little bit of fat as well to kind of replace some of the fat stores you would have lost during that exercise. Now, if you're in the UK, a really good brand you can look at is Yazoo. And certainly something I recommend to younger players is get yourself some Yazoos, because they're a lot cheaper than trying to buy designated protein shakes, and they do very, very similar things, okay? But if you're a high level athlete and you have the money and you can afford it and you're happy to, by all means look at the protein shakes. But remember, look for the Informed Sport logo one more time there, make sure it's properly batch tested and it is safe to consume. Okay, we've covered protein, but what about energy gels? Now, if you've watched sport, you will definitely have seen these starting to creep in more and more. They're really common in football. They're used during the game and certainly during half time, as well as endurance events like cycling. What they are is a high amount of easy to digest carbohydrate that can get absorbed straight into the system and allow us to carry on our sport or activity for longer. Okay, so you might have even seen these starting to creep into supermarkets. They're certainly on a lot of supermarket shelves now, so you might have seen them and thought, should I invest in those? There are cheaper alternatives, however, bananas being one of them. If ever you've watched Wimbledon, you'll definitely have seen players between sets in games peel back a banana, have a bite, and off they go again, okay? Just make sure if you are going to use bananas, try to use ripe bananas. There are some people have reported digestional problems if they're using really green bananas, okay? And that's the last thing you want if you're performing sport. The benefit of bananas, they're really cheap, they're really easy to transport. Similar with gels, you can just take them in with your bag, take them in your gym bag, take them in your football bag, whatever it is, and at half time have a bite of a banana or have a gel, and what it's going to do is it's going to give us that big burst of energy, lots of easy to digest carbs, and help us continue our sport for longer. So play around with what's easier for you. If you're happy to invest in gels, by all means do. They can be a really good addition to your sport or activity. But if you don't want to spend the money, by all means look at using something like bananas. Okay, so we've looked at protein and we've looked at energy gels. Is there anything else though we should be considering when it comes to supplements? The answer is it depends. It depends on you, it depends on your sport, it depends on what you are trying to achieve. But the only other supplement that I sometimes recommend to athletes and that I use myself is creatine monohydrate, okay? It helps with recovery time and it can increase lean muscle mass, but be really careful before you use it because it can increase weight relatively quickly. So if you're a weight-based sport like boxing, for example, it's not going to be ideal, and certainly like team sports as well, it's not always advantageous to be carrying around extra weight on the pitch, for example. But if you're somebody trying to improve muscle mass and you're just a regular gym goer and trying to increase mass that way, creatine could be a good option for you, but certainly do your research into it before you look at investing in it, okay? And that goes without saying for all supplements. Make sure you're doing your research before you buy any. And if you have access to a nutritionist or a sports scientist, ask them first. But remember, get your diet right before anything else, okay? And also make sure any supplements you buy are from a reputable brand. They are batch tested regularly and you know they are safe to use. If you're an athlete or if you're somebody in an academy, for example, make sure you're looking for that informed sport logo. It's really important that you do so. But for this video, that wraps us up, guys. So if you've got any more questions, please get in touch via all the details above my shoulder. You can get in touch via the website. And if you have learned something from this video, please drop a like on it. It helps me, it helps the channel get noticed more as well. But that'll do it for today, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.